Imagine waking up tomorrow, logging into your computer, and realizing that 90% of the software you use is suddenly being driven by a phantom employee.
Yeah, like you aren't really operating your applications anywhere. They're just operating themselves.
Right, exactly. They're sorting your emails, updating your spreadsheets, maybe negotiating with your vendors, all while you just sit there and sip your morning coffee.
It's a pretty wild thought, but we are right on the edge of that reality.
We really are. And, if you're listening to this, you probably want to stay ahead of the curve. But let's be honest, trying to track this shift can feel like drinking from a fire hose.
Oh, absolutely. There's just so much noise out there.
So much noise. You are constantly trying not to be overwhelmed by the daily avalanche of tech news, the grand promises, and, well, all those product launches that end up going absolutely nowhere.
Which is exactly why we need to focus on hard data.
Right. So our mission today is to cut through that noise. We are looking at a very specific, really monumental snapshot in time. We're diving into Aaron Rose's Tech Reader AI Digest, covering the week of April 7th to the 10th, 2026.
It is such a defining week to examine, too, because, for years, the conversation around artificial intelligence was heavily speculative.
Yeah, lots of hype.
Exactly. Lots of venture capital hype. It was all driven by what might happen in the future. But this specific week, in April 2026, represents the exact moment the industry faced what Rose calls a massive fiscal stress test.
A fiscal stress test. I love that framing.
Right, because we are moving past the theoretical now. We are looking at actual balance sheets, real physical infrastructure, and the immediate societal fallout.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are going to track how that stress test rippled outward, starting all the way down at the foundation.
The literal metal, silicon, and power grids.
Exactly. Before tracing those ripples up to the software you use every day, and finally into the profound legal realities that are actively reshaping how we govern technology.
Because to understand the gravity of this transition, you really have to look past the marketing narratives. The actual story of our technological future is being written in capital expenditures, revenue metrics, and courtroom dockets.
Yeah, that is where the real paradigm shift is happening. Because before we can talk about autonomous software or, what an AI agent is capable of doing, we have to look at the physical plumbing making it possible.
The plumbing is passing the test, to put it mildly.
Right. I always think about this physical infrastructure boom like a modern city's power grid. You wake up, you flip a switch, the lights come on. You never actually think about the millions of miles of copper wire or the massive transformer.
Or the concrete pipes underground, yeah.
Exactly. But without that invisible infrastructure, the whole city goes dark instantly. And the numbers from this digest prove that the people building this new digital grid are spending on just an unprecedented scale.
The scale of capital being deployed is genuinely historic.
Yeah.
I mean, to give that some context, let's look at Amazon.
Oh yeah, let's hear the numbers.
So in Chief Executive Andy Jassy's annual shareholder letter from this week, he disclosed that Amazon's AWS AI business has hit a $15 billion annual revenue run rate.
Wow, $15 billion.
Yeah, and to support that growth, he revealed a $200 billion capital expenditure commitment.
Wait, $200 billion. Just to clarify for anyone who doesn't spend their day looking at corporate balance sheets, a capital expenditure, or CapEx, isn't everyday operational spending, right?
No, not at all.
It's not salaries or office snacks. This is money spent on acquiring or upgrading actual physical assets.
That is a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
A $200 billion CapEx means Amazon is buying land, pouring concrete, building massive data centers.
They're outfitting them with advanced cooling systems and tens of thousands of specialized servers.
Precisely. They are building out the physical geography of the internet. And to add to that momentum, OpenAI stepped up with a $100 billion AWS spending pledge to rent that exact infrastructure.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
With Amazon pouring in $200 billion to build the data centers, and OpenAI promising to spend $100 billion right back to use them, are these numbers actually proof of real sustainable market demand?
You're wondering if it's a bubble.
Yeah, like is this just big tech subsidizing its own ecosystem? It feels like they could just be passing the same giant stacks of cash back and forth in a closed loop to make the market look healthy.
That is a very common skepticism, and, well, it makes sense on the surface. But when you look at the broader manufacturing and utility layers of the infrastructure, you realize this isn't a closed loop at all.
Okay, why not?
Because the demand is diverse, and it is actively bottlenecking the global supply chain. The clearest evidence of this is TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
Right, they're the ones actually fabricating the silicon chips that go into these Amazon data centers.
Exactly. This week, they posted their best quarter ever. We're talking NT $1.134 trillion in Q1 revenue, which is up 35% year over year.
And the digest points out that the month of March alone was up 45%.
Yeah.
That is wild.
What's fascinating here is that they achieve those margins despite intense geopolitical turbulence and broader macroeconomic uncertainty.
People still need chips no matter what.
Right. They are essentially the sole provider capable of printing the most advanced AI chips, and their order books are full for years.
Yeah.
But to directly answer your question about the closed loop, we really need to look at a company called CoreWeave.
CoreWeave, yeah. According to the digest, CoreWeave landed 2 landmark deals in just 48 hours. A $21 billion expansion deal with Meta and a multi-year agreement with Anthropic.
Yes, and those deals are huge indicators.
But why is CoreWeave the linchpin here? What makes them different from just another server farm?
So CoreWeave started as an Ethereum mining operation, but they pivoted to become a specialized cloud provider built entirely around GPUs, graphics processing units.
Okay, as opposed to CPUs.
Exactly. Traditional cloud providers like AWS were historically built around CPUs, which are great for general web hosting, but they're terrible for the massive parallel processing that AI requires.
Oh, I see. So CoreWeave optimized their whole setup for AI.
Right. They optimized their entire physical architecture, from the networking cables to the liquid cooling, specifically for AI workloads. The crucial detail in the digest is that 9 of the top 10 AI model providers are now on the CoreWeave platform.
9 out of 10. So they have essentially become the shared utility layer for the entire industry.
Precisely. When 90% of the top competitors in a space, companies actively trying to defeat one another, are all forced to rely on the same independent infrastructure provider just to train their models, it proves the foundational demand is tangible.
They don't have a choice.
Right. The infrastructure layer is passing its fiscal stress test because the appetite for compute is industry-wide, not just a financial arrangement between 2 megacorporations.
Which brings us to the next logical question. Why is all this money pouring into these data centers? What is driving that insatiable demand for compute power?
It all comes down to what the software is actually doing now.
Exactly. And the answer, as we move up to the application layer in this week's digest, is that the software running on those chips is fundamentally changing. We are witnessing the shift from passive tools to active agents.
And understanding that distinction is vital. A passive tool waits for human input at every single step.
It just sits there until you tell it what to do.
Right. But an active agent operates autonomously on your behalf to achieve a broader goal.
Here's where it gets really interesting for you, the listener. Using traditional AI search was basically like asking someone for a map. The AI gives you the directions, it shows you the route, which is incredibly helpful.
But you still have to drive the car.
Right. You still have to get in the car, press the gas pedal, and steer the wheel yourself. This new era of agentic AI highlighted in the digest is like hiring a highly trained chauffeur.
That is a great way to look at it.
You just give them the destination. The AI actually drives the car, navigates the traffic, adjusts for detours, and parks it for you.
And the market is aggressively rewarding companies that can provide that chauffeur. Look at Perplexity.
Yeah, the numbers in the digest are insane.
The digest notes they just hit $450 million in ARR, or annual recurring revenue. That metric represents the predictable, subscription-based revenue a company expects over a 12-month period.
And what stands out here is that this represents an incredible 50% jump in a single month.
Right, a 50% jump.
A 50% jump in ARR in 30 days is almost unheard of in the software as a service world. That is astronomical growth.
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that massive revenue jump was driven directly by Perplexity's pivot from simple search to what they call agentic AI via computer.
So they went from just giving you the map to driving the car.
Exactly. They transitioned from summarizing web pages to actively executing multi-step research tasks. When the software actually performs the labor, the value proposition to the user shifts entirely and, well, the financial returns explode.
We are seeing that same shift toward active labor with Anthropic. This week they launched Claude-managed agents in public beta.
A huge step forward for enterprise AI.
And what caught my eye is the pricing model. It's 8 cents per session hour. They aren't charging per word or per prompt anymore. They are basically charging an hourly wage for a digital worker.
Yes, because it's functioning like an employee.
And the system handles things like sandboxing, state management, and error recovery. Could you break down what those terms actually mean for someone integrating this into their business?
Absolutely. When an AI operates autonomously, it needs guardrails. Sandboxing creates a secure, isolated environment where the AI can execute code or manipulate files without accidentally deleting your core database or compromising your system's security.
So it's basically a safe playground. If the AI makes a catastrophic mistake, it only destroys the sandbox, not the whole company.
Exactly. It minimizes the risk.
What about state management?
State management is the system's ability to remember context over a long period. If you ask a passive chatbot to do a 50-step task, by step 10, it usually forgets what the original goal was.
Oh yeah, I've definitely run into that.
Right, so state management allows the agent to maintain a continuous memory of what it has done, what it's currently doing, and what it needs to do next.
That makes sense. And error recovery.
Error recovery is the ability to recognize when an action has failed. Say, an API link is broken. The agent can independently devise a new strategy to bypass the problem without asking a human for help.
That explains why major enterprise players like Notion, Rakuten, Sentry, and Asana are already shipping products on this framework. The AI is doing the heavy lifting in the background.
Yeah, the enterprise adoption is happening fast.
Even Shopify is going all in. They just launched an official AI toolkit supporting a variety of coding assistants like Claude Code, Cursor, Codex, VS Code, and Gemini CLI.
Which is huge for e-commerce.
And the Digest points out they are the first major e-commerce platform to ship an official MCP server.
MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. Think of it like a universal translator.
Okay, a translator for data.
Right. Historically, if you wanted an AI to understand your specific database, say your Shopify inventory, you had to build complex custom integrations. An MCP server standardizes how data is exposed to AI models.
Oh, wow, so it just plugs right in.
Yes, it allows an autonomous agent to securely plug into Shopify's backend, instantly understand the data structure, and start working.
So if I run a store, the agent can just plug into the MCP server and immediately start managing my inventory or analyzing my sales trends without me having to hire a developer to build a bridge between the two.
Exactly. It dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for deploying autonomous agents in commercial environments.
Let me bring this back to the daily grind for you, our listener. How does the Google Gemini and NotebookLM merger actually change the day-to-day workflow for someone who manages a lot of complex content research or sources?
It changes everything about how we interact with our own files.
The Digest mentions they have merged with bidirectional sync for paid subscribers, supporting up to 100 sources per notebook. What does that mean in practice?
Bidirectional sync is a profound change in how we manage knowledge. Previously, you might upload a PDF to an AI, ask it questions, and generate some notes.
Right, but those notes lived in the chat interface.
Exactly, and your original PDF remained unchanged. With bidirectional sync, the AI's understanding and your raw documents are permanently tethered.
So if I update a financial spreadsheet in my Google Drive, the AI immediately knows those numbers have changed without me having to re-upload anything.
Yes. And conversely, if you ask the AI to generate a summary of a meeting and pull action items, it can automatically embed those insights back into your organizational folders.
So the AI is no longer a separate assistant you have to constantly update.
Exactly. It lives inside the filing system, dynamically reading, synthesizing, and organizing the data as it changes.
So what does this all mean? We have to draw a causal line from this immense technological power to its real-world consequences.
Because the consequences are very real.
They are. The exact same scale and agentic power that can navigate your filing system, manage an e-commerce backend, and generate billions of dollars in recurring revenue inevitably crashes into the physical world.
It's unavoidable.
With massive capabilities comes massive legal accountability, and our legal framework is actively scrambling to catch up.
We saw that tension snap into clear focus this week. The Digest details that the Florida Attorney General has officially opened an investigation into OpenAI following the mass shooting at Florida State University.
Right. And to be incredibly clear, the Digest frames this strictly around a newly emerging legal precedent. The investigation centers on the fact that there were over 200 documented ChatGPT prompts from the shooter prior to the incident.
It's a landmark moment for tort law in the digital age.
Aaron Rose highlights this as the first major duty of care test for an AI lab becoming a legal reality.
Yes, and it's important to understand what a duty of care actually means. In tort law, a duty of care is a legal obligation imposed on an individual or an organization requiring adherence to a standard of reasonable care while performing any acts that could foreseeably harm others.
So the investigation is testing whether an AI company has a legal duty to monitor, restrict, or report highly specific, sequential interactions that indicate a user is planning a harmful act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the core legal question.
I have to push back on the legal framework here just to play devil's advocate again. If someone uses a traditional search engine to look up harmful information, or if they go to a public library and check out a book on chemistry before committing a crime, we don't usually sue the library or the search engine.
That's the traditional view, yes.
There are broad legal protections for platforms that simply host information. Is prompting an AI fundamentally different in the eyes of the law? Are we holding AI labs to a completely new legal standard?
That is the exact legal frontier being tested right now. Platforms like search engines have historically been protected because they operate as passive indexes.
They just point you to things that already exist.
Right. They hold pre-existing information created by third parties, and the user simply retrieves it. They are shielded by laws like Section 230 in the United States, which states that interactive computer services aren't legally responsible for the content provided by their users.
But a generative AI isn't just pointing to a third-party website.
No, not at all. Generative agentic AI is highly interactive and synthetical. It doesn't just hand you an existing document. It creates custom responses, adapts to specific lines of questioning, and actively generates new content in real time based on the user's instructions.
Okay, I see the distinction.
So the legal theory being explored is whether that active synthesis, custom generating responses across 200 specific prompts, shifts the AI from being a passive provider of information to an active participant.
Wow.
And if it is an active participant, does it now owe a duty of care to the public?
That shift from passive indexing to active generation completely rewrites how we govern digital platforms.
It really does. It changes the whole liability structure.
And what is fascinating is that the pressures these AI companies are facing aren't just external societal impacts. The legal and structural pressures are deeply internal as well.
This raises an important question about corporate governance, which the digest highlights perfectly by pointing to the Musk versus OpenAI trial.
Right. That trial is set to begin on April 27th in Oakland, with jury selection starting in just 17 days.
And this is monumental because it is the first ever jury trial over a nonprofit-to-profit conversion in the AI space.
It's a battle over the corporate structure and fiduciary duties of the company leading the industry.
It creates an incredible dual pressure for them. On one front, you have state attorneys general investigating whether the models themselves have a legal duty of care regarding their output.
And on the other front,
you have internal legal battles, examining whether the organizational pursuit of profit has compromised the original safety, transparency, and research mandates of the company's founding charter.
it really brings this entire deep dive full circle. When we look back at Aaron Rose's core thesis from the digest, it really holds up to the scrutiny.
The fiscal stress test is real.
Yes, the AI industry's fiscal stress test is absolutely real. The era of pure hype, speculative demos, and theoretical debates is officially over. The companies armed with undeniable revenue streams, massive physical infrastructure footprints, and disciplined execution are the ones surviving this transition.
They are passing the fiscal test. But surviving the financial realities of the market just means they have earned the right to face the legal, societal, and regulatory tests that follow.
And that is exactly why this matters so much to you, the listener. AI is no longer a fringe tech story. It is the physical, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure being laid in the ground right now in towns across the world.
It's the agentic workflow that is actively reorganizing how businesses operate.
Right, and how knowledge is managed. And it is the defining legal battleground of our immediate future. You are living through the transition point.
The transition is practically complete. The infrastructure is in place, the agents are deployed, and the legal precedents are being written as we speak.
Which leaves us with one final lingering thought to explore on your own. We just talked about the rise of powerful autonomous agents managing tasks on their own, and simultaneously we are seeing unprecedented legal investigations into the duty of care these models have when interacting with humans.
A collision course, really.
So think about this. What happens to legal liability when these AI agents inevitably start interacting, negotiating, and transacting directly with each other across shared utility layers like CoreWeave?
Oh, wow.
Right. If we completely remove the human prompter from the equation, who is legally responsible when an autonomous agent makes an error that financially ruins another autonomous agent's workflow? Think about that as you watch these systems integrate into your daily life. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.